You can't think your way out of a feeling problem. Maybe you've tried therapy, you've done a bunch of different courses, you've been introduced to breath work and that hasn't worked. Maybe you've done journaling. You've read a ton of different books. You've really shown up for yourself. I get it. You've done the work. Yet over and over, you're not getting the results you were looking for. Something still hasn't shifted. What if it's not because you haven't tried hard enough, but actually because nobody told you what actually needs to change first? I want to tell you about the one thing that I've seen change for people who've tried everything. It's not a technique or a framework, not another tool to add to a big list of pile of stuff you've been trying. It's this. It's understanding safety in the body. When your nervous system finally feels safe, generally physically safe, everything else starts to move. The anxiety lightens up, the overthinking slows, the emotional reaction that felt bigger than the situation at the beginning start to make sense, and then you start to shrink. The patterns you've been trying to break for years loosen their grip. And this isn't because you finally figured something out. It's truly because your body stopped bracing. Now, let me explain what I mean by this. Most people I work with are relatively smart. They've tried a lot of different things. They're in the community, a personal growth community, right? They're deeply aware, and they've done a lot of work on themselves typically. They can tell you exactly often where some of their patterns even come from. They can even trace some of their anxiety back to the specific moment, a specific relationship, a specific event that happened, maybe a specific version of themselves that they learned to survive a certain way. And a lot of them understand themselves really, really well. Yet, they're still stuck. Because here's what nobody tells you. Understanding a pattern and releasing that pattern are two completely different things. Your nervous system doesn't speak the language of insight. So the more you know isn't going to help you break this cycle. So it doesn't respond to logical thinking. It doesn't respond to analysis. It doesn't even respond to most of the profound realizations you've ever had in therapy session or 3M journal spiraling or your event at Tony Robbins' event. It responds to experience, to an actual sensation, to what it actually feels like inside your body right now in this moment. And if your body has spent years, maybe even decades in the survival mode, it has learned one thing above everything else. The world is not safe. People are not safe, and letting go is not safe. Look, that learning isn't stored in memories. It's not stored in your conscious thought. It's stored within your nervous system like little pockets, right? It shows up in the body in a way you notice with your shoulders as they brace or tense when someone raises their voice at you, in a way your chest tightens before a difficult situation, maybe a stomach sensation when you think of something that might feel overwhelming or anxious for you. It's in a way that you get a headache when you're stressed. And it's in a way when you shut down or explode or go completely quiet when something feels threatening to you. That's not a character flaw. That's not something to push through or to positive think or change your mindset around to get out of that way. That nervous system that never got to learn what safety actually feels like. Now that's what gets the key important thing to get. You can't think your way out into safety either, right? I know that might seem hard to hear if you've invested a lot of time or money in various approaches that are out there. They all work at a mind level, and I'm not saying those things aren't good or have no value. They really do. But really what is important is the awareness that matters. Understanding matters. But awareness alone doesn't release what's being stored within the body. Positive affirmations may be good, but they don't reach the nervous system. cognitive reframe or mindset techniques. They fake it till they make it. Don't dissolve what's been living in your body for 20, 30, 40 years. Safety has to be experienced and in the body. It has to be experienced in the body, but slowly, carefully, at a level where the original wound actually lives. Think about this way. If you spent years in an environment that wasn't safe, emotionally, physically, relationshiply, your nervous system has adopted this environment. And it went into protection mode, and it developed strategies to keep you okay. And this became your normal, right? And so hypervigilance, people pleasing, emotional shutdown, constant doing, staying small, staying loud, whatever that worked for you, these were all just strategies, to keep you safe. They were really genius adaptations for a difficult environment. It put you in a comfort zone of what was normal or which is now normal for you. But you're not in that environment anymore. And your nervous system doesn't know that because nobody has ever went in and told it. So it keeps running these patterns, the same patterns over and over again in your relationships, in your work environment, in the way you respond to stress, conflict, a trigger of some sort, in intimacy, into success, in the ceiling you kept hitting no matter how hard you tried to push beyond these walls of your comfort zone. The patterns aren't the problem. They're the solution. And the problem is your nervous system is still solving for a threat that really isn't there anymore. So what does it look like when safety actually gets built at the nervous system level? Well, it doesn't look like a dramatic breakthrough moment. It rarely does, or in some cases, might be. But it really looks more, it's deeper, it's more at the end of how things look. It looks like your shoulders dropping in a conversation that you used to brace for. It looks like a pause before you react, instead of like being swept away with that reaction. It looks like saying what you actually need instead of pre-apologizing or going silent. It looks like resetting without feeling guilty, feeling joy without waiting for something to go wrong. It's showing up in relationships without low hum of anxiety underneath everything, where you feel that in your stomach, right? It looks like becoming someone your past self wouldn't quite recognize. And it's not because you've changed who you are, but because you actually finally become who you're actually meant to be underneath all those survival mechanisms. I've seen this happen in people who had completely given up on changing. People came into me after years of therapy and they thought nothing really worked, and nothing really has worked, and nothing has moved for them. People who are functional on the outside and exhausted on the inside, in a way they stop trying to explain to anyone. And I've lived it myself. Look, when I was 13 years old, I was in a serious car accident that nearly killed me. In that moment, I thought, everything was gone. I was a hockey player, an athlete, someone with this future mapped out, or at least I thought I did, ripped away when we had that accident. And my nervous system learned something in that moment that took me years to unlearn. It's simply that life can be taken without warning, and that the ground underneath your feet isn't guaranteed. That you're better to hold on tight and to stay safe, ready. And so to adopt, it eventually led me to become a chiropractor. And I studied probably well over 20 chiropractic techniques, trying different ways to answer how to get people better. I looked at the structure of the body, nutrition, and in the adjustment and the alignment. And I helped people for sure. People got better. But I was hitting a wall because the root wasn't structural. What I noticed was the root was emotional. It was in the stored nervous system, energy in the nervous system. And no adjustment was ever going to reach that. And that's when I developed my own method. It's body level work that goes where the patterns actually live and release them at that root. So not managing systems, not coping better, actually release them so the nervous system can actually learn, maybe for the first time. That's it's safe, and it's safe to let go. That's the work. And it's not about, you may not remember some of the stories, and it's not therapy where we have to relive some of the stories. Most of the most important work a person can do. And here's the last piece I want to leave you with. When your nervous system starts to feel safe, something else happens that most people don't expect. Your identity starts to shift. Because the version of you that developed in the survival mode, the one who people pleases, overdoes it, who can't seem to rest, who shrinks or tries to control or numbs themselves, that's not actually you. That's an adaptation that you've created as a means to be safe. And it's a survival strategy, and you're wearing it on your face. So when the nervous system finally releases that version of you, and it starts to fall away, and what's underneath is quieter, calmer, more grounded, and you're more yourself. You start to create a new person. It's a new version of you doing different things that you didn't think you could or would. And people in my program say things like, I don't recognize myself, but in the best way. Or I like to feel like me. I finally feel like me. I just don't know what that ever felt like before. And that's not coincidence. That's what happens when the weight you've been carrying your whole life finally just lifts. There's a lot of room for new things to come in when this happens. New relationships, new levels of income, and bigger impact. A new capacity for joy and presence and connection with that you don't even know is possible. It's that survival mode never has space for. And this is really what's possible. Not someday, in 90 days of doing the right work at the right level. If this is the first time something has clicked for you, well, good. That click matters, and don't ignore it. You can start simply by grabbing a simple guide as a 12 ways of building safety in your nervous system, or really relaxing your system. It's a simple practice. 12 simple practices that you can do at home just to start to calm that nervous system. And so if you do that, then allow yourself to bring awareness to what you're feeling. And if you want to go further, there's a simple, practical body level way you can to really start this process. And I'd love for you to experience what that looks like. So I offer a free discovery call. We'll take you through a practice of what's possible for you with doing this work. And that's really going all in. If you actually want to do this work really at a body level with someone who's been through it themselves and has built a method really around that from the inside out, go check out my page, my page, and learn a little bit more about me. If you even want to go deeper, this is the work you're up to going and doing, and you don't have to keep doing it alone. I'm there for you, and I'll see you in the next one.